Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Dr. Marvin Moy? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoy this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the incident, then offer my analysis. Marvin Moy was born in New York City. His father was a Chinese immigrant who inherited a cafe that family members had opened on Mott Street. Marvin's parents divorced when he was young. After working one day washing dishes in the cafe, Marvin decided that the family business was not something he wanted to be involved with. Hoping to escape a life of repetitive and boring work, he became a dedicated student. In 1992, he graduated from New York University with a bachelor's degree. In 2004, he graduated from a medical school in Buffalo. Marvin returned to New York City and worked in various hospitals over the next few years. In 2007, he met a woman named Hannah. They married in August 2008. They rented an apartment on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. In December 2008, just 4 months after his marriage, Marvin was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He had surgery to treat it. According to Marvin, during his hospital stay, his wife moved her mother into their apartment. After he was released from the hospital, he had to recover at his grandparents' residence. There was no room for him in the apartment. Marvin's wife gave birth to a girl and took her to China for a visit. Marvin was afraid the cancer would return and kill him. He would never be able to see his daughter. His wife filed for divorce and stayed in their apartment. Marvin lived alone in another apartment 3 stories higher in the same building. Sometime around 2008, prior to his cancer diagnosis, Marvin opened a series of pain management clinics in Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, and on Long Island. He ran into some cash flow problems. Therefore, he entered into an agreement with a company called Medical Reimbursement Consultants. This company was operated by a man named Bradley Pierre. Bradley provided a service to Marvin referred to as factoring. This is when a company purchases another company's receivables at a discount. Bradley was entitled to collect on all of the claims submitted to insurance companies from Marvin's medical practice. In exchange, he paid Marvin 35% up front. Considering that the insurance companies typically paid between 70 and 80% of the amount billed, this was a pretty good deal for Bradley. According to the government, it was actually a pretty good deal for both Bradley and Marvin. During the time the agreement was active, the 2 men, plus several other individuals, including physicians, allegedly ran a $70 million criminal enterprise. According to the government, here's what was involved in this crime. The conspirators hired people called runners to bribe hospital workers, police officers, and 911 dispatchers to provide the names of people injured in motor vehicle collisions. The runners would then approach the victims and direct them to one of Marvin's clinics or another clinic involved in the conspiracy. After arriving at the clinic, the victims were subjected to unnecessary and excessive medical treatments. This drove up the insurance claims to a degree where 35% was actually a lot of money for Marvin. In January 2022, Marvin was indicted for healthcare fraud conspiracy and money laundering conspiracy by a federal court in Manhattan. He was facing up to 30 years in prison, but that was not his only problem. He had been fighting his ex-wife in court over custody of their daughter. The court battle was expensive. He owed one law firm almost $70,000. In addition to owning a medical practice, Marvin owned a commercial fishing operation, which operated a boat called Sure Shot. Under the circumstances, perhaps a better name would have been Mugshot. Marvin had a crew which operated the boat. They would mostly harvest tuna and shellfish. Every now and then, Marvin would personally operate the boat. This is what he was planning on doing in October of 2022. Marvin contacted 4 of his friends and invited them to a 6-hour fishing trip to an area of the ocean called Hudson Canyon. He wanted to make sure that at least 4 people in total were on the boat so that 2 people could be awake at all times. All 4 of Marvin's friends declined the invitation. On October 12th, Marvin sailed out of the marina with just one crewmate, a 36-year-old man named Max Wong. He was a nurse in Queens. Marvin and Max completed their fishing in Hudson Canyon and started heading back to the marina. Just past midnight, now on October 13, a distress beacon on Marvin's boat activated. The boat was 25 miles from Fire Island. The Coast Guard sent a helicopter to provide assistance. The crew spotted Max, but they did not see Marvin. They also didn't see a boat. They only noticed that there was an oil slick on the water. The Coast Guard pulled Max into the helicopter. They saw that he had cuts on his face, but other than that, he appeared to be in good condition. He was able to communicate clearly. Max told the Coast Guard that Marvin's boat had been struck by a substantially larger seagoing vessel. The Coast Guard searched for Marvin. They covered over 4,000 square miles of ocean with no success. The search was suspended on October 14. A few days later, Marvin was due to appear in a Manhattan courtroom. The judge issued a warrant for his arrest, which of course was only applicable if Marvin was alive. If Marvin was not alive, then it was up to him whether he disregarded the warrant or not. When Max was recovering in the hospital, one of Marvin's friends sent him a text telling him he needed to come clean about what happened. Max responded by texting that he became seasick on the fishing trip, which caused the journey to end early. He fell asleep on a bench as they were headed back to the marina. When the larger vessel hit Marvin's boat, Max woke up and saw debris flying everywhere. Marvin told Max that he was hurt. Max tried to call for help, but none of the electronics were operational. As the boat sank, Marvin grabbed a life ring. Max grabbed onto a case that held the inflatable life raft. Both of the men were floating in the water. The last thing Marvin said was, "Max, are you okay?" The legal proceedings against Marvin have stalled due to his disappearance. Some people believe that he is actually alive, or that if he is really dead, it was not an accident. Now moving to my analysis. The circumstances surrounding Marvin's disappearance have led to a number of questions and concerns. A few examples. The timing of Marvin's disappearance and potential death happened to occur as he was facing significant legal problems. It's hard to believe that this was a coincidence. No vessel in the area where Max was rescued reported striking a boat. Only 3 vessels were close enough to have been involved in a collision with Marvin's boat. If Marvin was hanging on to a life ring, why didn't he survive? Why did Max hold on to the case that held the inflatable life raft when using the life raft would have made a lot more sense? Was he really floating in the ocean, holding onto this case, thinking to himself, "I wish I knew where that raft was"? This would be like a man walking through the wilderness with a shotgun and a gun case. A bear attacks the man, so he pulls the shotgun out, then hits the bear with the case. It just seems like the optimal response was exceedingly obvious. There are 3 major theories about what could have happened in the case of Marvin Moy. Let's take a look at the theories and some of the evidence supporting and refuting them. Theory number 1 is that Max was telling the truth. He went on a fishing trip with Marvin, a man he did not know very well. Max became sick, the trip ended early, and he went to sleep. For some reason, the boat was struck by another vessel, perhaps because Marvin was asleep as well. Marvin's friends said that he had a tendency to sleep while he was out on the boat due to the fact that he had diabetes. The trip did appear to be planned in advance, which is consistent with the story that Max offered. Again, Marvin had asked 4 of his friends to come with him. If Marvin was really planning on faking his own death, why did he want so many people with him? Theory number 2 is that Marvin was never on the boat in the first place. This was all staged to prevent Marvin from going to prison. Another version of this would be that some other vessel picked Marvin up before the boat was struck. This theory is possible, especially considering that Marvin was facing 30 years of incarceration. This would have restricted his medical career quite a bit. In prison, the term pain management takes on an entirely different connotation. It's more like pain endurance. Marvin probably wasn't looking forward to suffering in prison for years. Marvin had allegedly been involved in a sophisticated conspiracy. It's not hard to imagine that he was involved in one final conspiracy to disappear. The problem with this staged disappearance theory is, how did Marvin cause his boat to sink? Theory number 3 is that Marvin was on the boat and died as a result of the collision, but the collision was not an accident. When Max was asleep, Marvin saw an opportunity to cause the collision with a larger vessel. He was trying to bring an end to his own life. This explains why he did not inflate the life raft or remain afloat with the life ring. Under this theory, Marvin did not plan on the collision beforehand. Rather, his decision was impulsive. How would I rank these theories from most to least probable? Despite the hard-to-believe coincidence, I think that theory number 1 is probably the most likely. Max is telling the truth. Marvin died as the result of an accidental collision. Next, I would go with theory number 3. The collision was intentional because Marvin did not want to go to prison. Then theory number 2. The disappearance was staged. This would be the least probable. How would I conceptualize this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Marvin Moy was an intelligent man who had a promising career. People who knew him thought that he was fascinating, interesting, and a great guy. Marvin felt as though his success was certain and there was no way that he could miss in life. This is exemplified by him naming his fishing boat Sure Shot. Marvin experienced a number of setbacks which challenged his theory, like being diagnosed with cancer, divorcing his wife, and running into money problems. Financial success now seemed like a long shot. Marvin decided he could once again be a big shot by engaging in fraud. Maybe he looked at the conspiracy as not a big deal. For example, according to the government, Bradley was the one who ran the medical clinics. Maybe Marvin figured that only Bradley would get in trouble if they were caught. Marvin was desperate to continue to have fun in life. He was committed to giving it his best shot. He went out on his boat despite not having enough people with him to safely operate it. Marvin knew that he was taking a chance, but he didn't care anymore. If something catastrophic happened, as it did, this would be his parting shot. Those are my thoughts in the case of Dr. Marvin Moy. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be like a shot in the arm. Thanks for watching.